Thank you so much for joining us today. We're at the Rumble Studios in Washington, D.C. You see the backdrop behind me. I think that's the Library of Congress or something over my left shoulder. So in any event, we are here in Washington at the Rumble Studios. We appreciate them hosting us here. We had all morning and early afternoon at the executive offices at the White House, talking to cabinet level officials and others. We'll report to you on that. Susan organized and executed the whole thing, and she's here to give her observations. So there I am with RFK Jr. Who else you got there, Caleb? And there we are with Carolyn Levitt, and finally with the Treasury Secretary. Very interesting people, interesting interviews. Yep, and we will get to tell you about that. And then Peter McCullough joins us, and then Stephanie Van Watson from Fatty. She has a new book called Longevity. She's going to tell you about that. So this is a lot today. So do stay with us. I'm not going to be able to watch you guys on the rants. I don't see the streams, but Susan does, and she'll be joining me right here at the opening just after this.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for Christ's sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue. And we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. We actually brought our Fatty 15 with us on this trip, but we're going to be speaking to Stephanie Van Watson in a few minutes about her book, Longevity, which is worth the read. And Susan plopped this down in front of me and said, talk about Rumble. How can we not talk about Rumble? We're so grateful, Dylan. Thank you. Thank you to Rumble Studios for letting us take over today. I did Viva Fry's show a few minutes ago, which was fun, from this very seat. And today we join you on our show. As I said, Peter McCullough in here in just a minute. Susan is with me. Let's get that 2 shots so she can come. There you are. And you will be on the Rumble Rants, and you will be watching the restream as well. Are you able to watch that? Okay, good. So if you have things you want her to shuttle in here, please do so on the rants. And what were your thoughts about this morning? You pulled this whole thing off. It was. Do you have the action shot, by the way, that I sent you, Caleb? Susan in action behind the scenes.
I was just trying to prep it. I'll see if I can get it.
It'd be good to put that up when you can.
What about the other pictures?
Well, any thoughts about your experience this morning? I know I have mine.
My thoughts. So we were given 72 hours notice. And
we weren't even given that. 72 hours from like this minute, really. Maybe, it's like
48 hours.
48.
And we just showed up and met all the other people in the press, and they had their booms and their mics and their lights and their crews, and we were all set up like a podcast row, they call it. Basically, you get a little corner and everybody gets an interview for 15 minutes with each person. But it was easy getting into the White House, which I was pleasantly surprised because that's never happened before. And we pulled it off. We got some good footage. It was a little hard to, with the equipment that I brought, which was basically an iPhone and a Rode mic. It worked, but it was a little harder with RFK Jr. because of his voice. And I had the mic on the wrong side of the lapel. But I think Caleb was able to come up with some footage out of it. He was able to piece some stuff together.
Maybe we can watch the Carolyn Levitt.
But I was really excited to come, but I was super tired because we had to get up so early. But
we didn't
otherwise, it was fun. We ran into Jack Posobiec and Sage Steele, who we've had on the show. We Viva Fry, who we always love to goof around with. He was smitten by RFK, ran up and did a selfie with him, and it was
and Tulsi Gabbard when we saw her
but then he was
hall.
afraid when Tulsi came out. He goes, I said, well, I'll introduce you, because he felt like a fool after jumping on RFK. But it was all the people that we know and love, and in the media, and it was fun. It was fun to be part of the crew, and actually be respected as like a team.
It's one of the reasons I want to, I don't think I have this particular footage, but one of the things I told to Carol, I think it's even in this footage where I tell Carolyn Levitt, I go, look, just you and your camera. I do make that point. Do you have that little footage, Caleb? That's what I'm saying in this little interview, which is the fact that
I always remind myself of this. CNN is like the bottom of the barrel. MSNBC has more ratings nowadays than CNN.
I
Fox
think
dominates
in this room you get a bigger reach.
100%.
This is the new world. And the other thing I want to point out to everybody, this is all you need to run this kind of business.
Exactly.
As soon as you add that, you're adding expense you may not need. You may not succeed.
Right.
This is the new world. That used to be in a television studio.
Yeah.
Now it's in my wife's hand.
That's the point I was making. It was like the technology that I can hold in my hand used to require an entire studio to execute.
It's a little tinny, I have to say.
But the point is, you did it with the little earpieces and the little microphones and the iPhone, and that's what makes this all possible. So having more lights and more this, more I think that's a mistake.
I had cameraman envy and sound envy, but honestly, we came to schmooze, and anything that we take away today, I think Caleb can fix in post if we want to use something for social media. What we're supposed to do with this footage, I'm not really sure, but I think Drew, more than anything, needs to talk about what his experience is and what he takes away from it, and then also to just be the voice or the media, I guess, without.
Well, listen to the Treasury Secretary. I think that was actually some of the conversation. I mean, a lot of it was just developing we these people and hearing who they are, which you don't get to hear. I mean, one of the points I was making is there are all these political operatives out there going, we got to get the next Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is a smart guy, a curious guy, a good interviewer, and he just sits and talks to people. And he's interested in who they are, what they're thinking. That's it. And that's the way I felt today. Like I could have used another 15 minutes with each of them just to get into it a little more. But you get going, you get started, and it's still long form. It's not the 12-second soundbite that most of media is. See if we can play the Treasury Secretary. I actually thought this was kind of interesting.
Assuming a 3% growth rate, what is our sustainable budget versus GDP? What are we aiming at here?
Well, what we want to do, the
sustainable deficit, I beg your pardon.
Yeah. So the long-term average for the past 40 or 50 years
is 3% growth reasonable?
3% is very achievable.
Okay.
And when we have more time, we can talk about how crazy the CBO scoring is, because it assumes 1.8, and whether taxes go up, taxes come down.
Still 1.8.
It's 1.8.
Yeah.
We think 3% is very achievable.
This Warren Buffett's number.
The other thing too is we've got a record. It's what President Trump did in his first administration, and we know the power of unleashing the private sector. So it's taxes, but it's deregulation. I think that's the publicized story. The amount of regulation the Obama administration put on, the Biden administration put on. So we want to give business, industry, individuals, especially small businesses, regulatory certainty, and then the guaranteed energy.
They want you out of here. So energy policy, deregulation, cutting costs?
Cutting costs.
You didn't mention cutting costs.
Cutting costs. I mean,
because that's what's in the press is the cost cutting part.
Cutting costs has been unthinkable.
Yeah.
If you think about like a very simple formula, G equals T taxes minus spending, or spending minus taxes.
Yes.
that our side just wanted spending to go up a little less fast. Their side likes to spend a lot. And the unthinkable would be if the S for spending went down, we get taxes down, and then the G is smaller, but the GDP can be bigger.
So there you go. That is our Secretary of Treasury, a very bright guy. He comes from, he was a fund manager, I believe. He had a very famous home in Charlotte's, where's Port Sumter? Charlotte? No, I'm sorry. Wherever Port Sumter is. He restored a famous sort of manor there that figured prominently into the outbreak of the Civil War. South Carolina, but the city, Charlottesville?
Near Charleston. Near Charleston.
Charleston.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon, Charleston.
Need our Southern guy.
In any event, it was interesting talking to him, and we'll maybe tomorrow or something, our next show, we'll play a little tape of RFK Jr. and what I got from him. He was addressing today essentially the big layoff, saying, I'll just paraphrase because Dr. McCullough is here, I want to get right to him, but he was essentially saying that he had met a lot of really good, hardworking, intelligent people at HHS working on behalf of the American people that he had great faith in. That was the majority of who was there, but there was sort of an ossified layer that he wanted to get rid of, and he was having to do so. And so he felt he could make things more efficient without that, which made sense to me. We didn't get into much more detail about that, but I'll air that for you. But it's interesting here. What I learned from the Treasury Secretary was I did not know this. I thought they were all focused on reducing spending. It turns out it's not the case. He is focused on reducing regulation, which is, of course, that's a very common thread or a common theme in the right-leaning politics. But I hadn't heard him articulate that. I don't know why, but I was interested to hear that. So I learned that today myself. All right. So speaking of learning, let's get to Dr. Peter McCullough. He is on the medical board with me at the Wellness Company. You all know him. He is probably our most important guest and a recurrent visitor that we learn from every single time he comes. Dr. McCullough, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. It's great to be back and great to see you in Washington. I tell you, your alacrity with the economic principles was very impressive, Dr. Drew.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I have a weird preoccupation with history and economics. It's bizarre, but be that as it may, let's get back to medicine. A lot of stuff going on right now. I want to talk about Spike at some point, but let's talk a little bird flu. I think you sent me an article that I read rather quickly about some concern about a new subvariant of the bird flu that's looking rather nasty. Tell me about that.
Recall the bird flu outbreak has been going on for about 4 years now. The original source is called the clade. It's clade 2344b. We think it emanated potentially out of the USDA research laboratory in Athens, Georgia, when they were working on mallard ducks. The ducks started spreading around, and then it's off to the races. The major genotype for years has been the B3.13, very mild conjunctivitis in humans, very mild in the birds. It spread to dozens of mammalian species. We've seen the emergence of D1.1. Now, that was in the near-fatal case in a teenager in British Columbia who went in the ICU and went on ECMO and needed bronchoscopy and samples. It was D1.1 in the fatal case in Louisiana, a man who cared for birds in his backyard or picked up birds. And then there's 2 fatal cases now in Cambodia, a toddler and a man, not D1.1, but a different strain by what's called genetic reassortment. And so now, recently in Mississippi, I believe there is an initial outbreak of a strain H7N9, another bird flu strain. What we're learning is the biosecurity policy of continuing to cull and destroy all the healthy chickens and just cleanse the facilities and repopulate is allowing the virus to go in and reinfect. And it's been too long of a time. And it's allowed for genetic misadventure, and now potentially some serious strains to emerge.
So I don't remember any time, maybe I'm naive, but I don't remember any time in my career where there was so much speed of genetic mutation or genetic, I used a specific word in terms of the admixturing and the changing of the genetic structuring. Is that because of the alteration or the work that's done on these viruses? Or has that just been going on and now we're just more aware of it? I mean, this whole notion that it has the potential to be a pandemic virus, I never heard in my career prior to COVID, anybody going, oh, here's a virus that has the potential to be a pandemic, until it was a pandemic. But you know what I mean? I don't understand how things are so different now.
Chances are they're not, with the exception of SARS-CoV-2. Influenza is known if you have, a whole series of strains of influenza and they cohabitate in the same nasopharynx, they can swap genetics because they're all influenza variants. That's called genetic reassortment. Okay, that's the one process. A mutation is when there's a dominant strain and there's a fundamental change. And with COVID, it's always been the spike protein. That's the big mutation, area where there's change. And in flu, it's the hemagglutinates. That's the spike protein of influenza. So there can be, this D1.1 mutation of H5N1, that looks like it's a big deal, just like the Delta strain of COVID, the SARS-CoV-2, that was a big deal. And then there's another process, that's this kind of seasonal process called antigenic drift. That's a very interesting one where, in a sense, there is this kind of seasonal change where there is some variation. Animals take on different images and shapes, and humans, over time, it's not the same illness every time. But so we have genetic capabilities. We have a full, genomic sequencing available. But don't forget, there's also a business opportunity, and the business opportunity is always a vaccine. And that's the reason why. Can you imagine if you're a vaccine manufacturer, or let's say you're Bill Gates, and you have CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, and this is your baby, you've invested in this, and you believe, or you could message that there is a strain of pandemic potential. Oh, so now you're in the vaccine business. This is very important. And these companies are salivating at the next big government contract for vaccines.
Okay. That explains a little bit of this. Let's, and there's I think, what is it, H7N5 now flying around? There's a bunch of things that that I'm worried about.
That's H7N9, and it traditionally had a higher mortality. Now, keep in mind the legacy mortality of bird flu was always, Southeast Asia, undernourished families sleeping with chickens, no acute medical care. It really wasn't plausible. But when we saw the girl in British Columbia go in, modern ICU on ECMO, and it looks like, big time bird flu influenza, that caught our attention. The man who died in Louisiana, a little different story. It's still cloudy what's happened. And our CDC needs to go investigate and write up these cases in MMWR.
Speaking of which, by the way, I talked to RFK Jr. this morning about his new CDC director, and actually several people around him, a person around him, I talked to her about her as well. They are very confident in her. She's an old, very much of a MAHA advocate, and she is, a lot of the nonsense swirling around her seems to be just that. So patience, everybody, on the new CDC director. Maybe she will do exactly what you're asking for here. And again, Tamiflu, we offer that through the Wellness Company. That is available. You can take that if you get sick. If you want it, some people are advocating adding a second antiviral if you get bird flu, if you actually got it, maybe. But in any event, be prepared, everybody. The Wellness Company has emergency kits if you want to get those. Let's switch back to spike and COVID. I am not quite sure where I am yet with this. I'm seeing people start to get much more matter of fact with the presence of myocarditis from spike and COVID. Like, okay, we're finally admitting that that's the case. That still people are saying it's the COVID, it's not the vaccine, but everybody agrees it's the spike protein. So how could it not at least also be the vaccine doing this? And fine, but let's do finally the research that either establishes the difference or that they, together they're as bad or worse than either individual. We got a lot of questions that have yet to be answered. I asked, by the way, RFK Jr. a little bit about this on the DL today, and he was like, at this position, I can't do much about that editorial stuff that I was going to do as president. So fine, we got to sort of keep applying pressure wherever we can to get the editorial process of the journals to be more diversified, let's say, and less in one direction. But what should people do who are worried they have a spikeopathy? People are kind of all over the place right now, and I'd like you to give them a little primer on how they should be approaching this if they still have long COVID, long vax, any of these symptoms that they're worried are part of that syndrome.
Well, I should just tell you quickly about the case I just had before I came on with you. And let me tell you that it's a man in his 50s in Dallas-Fort Worth, and he took 3 Pfizer vaccines. And so the final booster was early in 2022. And within a month of the third one, he develops a pulmonary embolism. Okay, so he gets a blood clot. That's a well-known complication of the spike protein. Pfizer.
Has he had COVID? Is COVID the illness involved in there anywhere?
Never
just to satisfy? Never had
okay. COVID. Tested him. Antibody negative against the nucleocapsid.
Interesting.
Okay, so this is solid. He's one of the 3% of Americans who's not had COVID. And he reminded me of that. So for sure, this is the vaccine. And, he has loss of mental clarity, post-exertional malaise, fatigue. He's on medical disability. He's on blood thinners, anxiety, depression, the whole thing. Everything is cascading around him. So he's been searching. He's been to Mayo Clinic. He's been to many specialists. I'm one of maybe a dozen doctors he's seen. But one of the people he engaged with is Bruce Patterson at Incel DX. And if you haven't had Bruce on your show, you should.
We have, and his partner Ram Yogendra. We were early to that, and he had an observation early in COVID, early in the vaccine history, that there were these non-classical monocytes with persistent viral particles that prevented them from going from their normal cycle of apoptosis, and they were showing up throughout the CNS, causing inflammation.
Well, this patient I just had got his panel with Bruce Patterson, Incel DX, which specifically can measure the S1 segment of the spike protein in these CD16 positive monocytes. So my patient now, 2.5 years after his booster, has the S1 segment positive.
That's crazy.
It's not COVID. So we've ruled that out. Yeah. It's the vaccine. And, he pointed me to a company that I'm going to explore. This is Wolfgang Wodart's, I believe, company in Germany. But I want to, some of your viewers are. I
heard they were doing some stuff with German group. In fact, yesterday, Ram Yogendra, his partner, was supposed to be on the show, but we had to cancel to travel here. So we will get. I'm glad I'm talking to you about this because we'll follow on with him.
Do they have cures for the spike protein?
Well, that's what we're going to get into here. That's what he's.
We're going to get to that, but let me get this company's name out here. It's called Imodia, INMODIA, the Institute for Molecular Diagnostics. And here it's a diagnostic laboratory for the clarification and documentation of possible COVID-19 vaccine damage. And they will be able to detect from biopsies, blood, cerebral spinal fluid, spike protein, and they will do focused testing for Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Janssen in terms of the spike protein related to those products and measure the messenger RNA using reverse qPCR technology. So we're going to see it. The Biden administration, since you're in Washington, this is important to know, the Biden administration, HHS, spent $1 billion on long COVID syndromes. Not in one program did they even capture whether or not someone took a vaccine. So everything was long COVID. And not in a single project did they mention the word spike or spike protein.
That's crazy. And one of the things that Patterson's partner told me early on, he said, he kind of said it under his breath on the DL. He goes, most of the long COVID we're seeing is actually long vax. And I went, yeah, of course. Of course. That makes sense. Both exist. It's fine. But a lot of it is long vax because that's the thing that really, when it goes sour, really is producing persistent spike. And the fact that we continue to mandate this spike factory vaccine, why can't we switch it to a nucleocapsid or something other than the pathogenic molecule? Isn't that weird?
Whether or not we need a vaccine at all. There was an announcement out of Washington just kind of killing the rest of these COVID projects because they said essentially the pandemic's over with.
I believe that's coming. I believe that is coming. You're absolutely correct. But now let's talk about, go ahead.
Just one more paper to quote. We have this out of my Substack Focal Points. Perez and colleagues just came out today. They have now data on people out to 5 shots, people taking, 5 COVID mRNA shots, and clearly showing what's called IgG subclass switching. So going from the beneficial IgG1 and 2, which neutralizes spike protein, to IgG4, which is useless and counterproductive, and clearly showing that those with IgG4 have a predilection for getting recurrent COVID. So,
perfect.
For those calling for the vaccines to be called off the market, sure, we could remove any more safety events occurring, but we actually may end the pandemic because we won't have any more of these people getting COVID.
Wow, we're it's just mind-boggling. So let's talk about if anybody's having long COVID, long vax symptoms, and even especially if they're on restricted income or something and they want to be able to do something to make themselves better. A lot of people have tried a lot of things. What is there? Do you have like a stepwise approach? Is it published somewhere that people can go to?
We've published in the World Journal of Cardiology, which is in the PubMed peer-reviewed literature, a risk stratification approach. We think a valuable test is the antibodies against the spike protein, which is widely available. We like the LabCorp Roche Alexis extended range assay. Normal is less than 0.8, and it ranges up to 25,000. So there's been plenty of papers showing we can gauge risk. 0 to 1,000 is a pretty good number. The patient I just finished with, he's at 5,000. He's been detoxing hard. Now, the detoxification approach, we've published a Substack on this, on Focal Points, and I've done some shows on this. We think a lot of people can do this themselves, actually, through the wellness company and get the ultimate spike detox. That's nattokinase, bromelain, curcumin, and some minor ingredients. 2 capsules twice a day starting. Under physician supervision, we can go to 4 capsules twice a day on an empty stomach. To handle some of this loss of mental clarity, a product you helped design, MindLift. And I've used that in some of these kind of brain fog cases, and patients do get a sense of improved mental clarity for decreased energy, post-exertional malaise. We have the elevated energy product, something to fit that need. And then lastly, for the cardiovascular part of it, the healthy heart provides some additional support to the heart, we think. This patient I had, by the way, he had MRI-proven myocarditis in addition to pulmonary embolism. So, I recommended the 4 package for him. I've tried a lot of prescription drugs, Dr. Drew. I really am not convinced that very few generally work, but I can tell you in specific syndromes. So, myopericarditis, colchicine for a year. That's guidelines. That should be done. That's guidelines. Okay. If there are craniofacial syndromes, trigeminal neuralgia, loss of smell, olfactory nerve, skin rashes, ground glass appearance in the chest, I think persistent SARS-CoV-2 infection, ivermectin. So it's one of the few syndromes. It's not ivermectin for everybody, but specifically for that syndrome. I typically go about 90 days, prolonged course of ivermectin. ANA positive, rheumatoid factor positive, anti-citrulated peptide positive, lupus, anticoagulant or anticardiolipin positive, hydroxychloroquine. Not forever, but again, a 3, 6, 9 month course. And then another interesting observation, and this has borne out in my practice, severe loss of mental clarity, sometimes some numbness and tingling, seems to clear up with a nicotine patch.
Oh, so I've seen that. Ritalin too. I've seen Ritalin help with people. That makes perfect sense to me. Also, personally, having had the actual long COVID, not long vax, working on languages. I'm telling you, there's a study out there, there's a series of studies, actually a meta-analysis that shows the primary, there was a lot of talk about your brain shrinking during COVID, right? Which of course happens to adults with any severe viral illness. But there's some data out there that shows now that that's primarily parietal temporal. And that's where the language centers are. And I myself, just working on languages, really cleared my fog. It was rather dramatic. So music, language, those sorts of things that are managed in this part of the brain might help sort of restore some of that stuff.
Excellent. Just don't watch TV. That's probably one of the most mind-numbing things you can do. But so
That's what you feel like doing when you have this stuff too. It's all you feel like doing. So, hang on a second. Caleb, what are you putting there? What are you pointing about the nicotine? He's saying use the nicotine for brain fog.
Yeah, Dr. McCullough, he mentioned that, and I've actually read certain anecdotes from people that were saying stuff that were similar, where they're saying the low, like 3 milligram of nicotine pouches, not smoking, the pouches or the patches, was effective against their brain fog. That's anecdotal stuff, but have you seen more instances of that working for some people?
Well, there's a pretty solid report, Caleb, out of Switzerland showing indeed that the nicotine blocks the spike protein's interaction with the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. Now, keep in mind, smokers did very well through COVID. I don't think I've ever seen a smoker with long COVID syndrome. I haven't seen one.
Interesting. Isn't that interesting?
And I've treated face-to-face and examined thousands of patients. So I've really been in the trenches. Now, keep in mind, smokers smoke in a way where they keep the blood levels of nicotine up consistently. It's not up and down, it's consistent. And so what emulates that is a nicotine patch. And remember, for smokers, for nicotine addiction, we use 21 milligrams a day, but for a non-smoker, in this application, would use 7 milligrams a day. So it's lower. I think that's most effective. Take it off when you have a shower. Again, I usually go about 90 days on things. I don't think it's going to be forever to get people to detox. Now, some people can't tolerate it, so they've tried the nicotine gum, which is 2 milligrams, but much more an up and down effect. And then these pouches, I've just had a few patients with these pouches report some success. And keep in mind, the pouches, I understand, are not tobacco, Dr. Drew. So,
the snus. Yeah. The snus-like pouches. They're pretty high. They're pretty high in nicotine, though. I've tried those a couple of times. I get nauseated from them pretty quickly.
Okay. I've seen, for example, I think when you're talking about the pouches, they go as low as 3 milligrams. I've seen, because I think Tucker Carlson actually has a brand called Alp that is, he's selling those, and it's supposed to be just mainly straight up nicotine and not have all the other side additives.
I know, but Caleb, 3 milligrams, don't forget the mucosa in the mouth is a direct absorption route. 3 milligrams in the mouth is a lot.
That's a lot. And now, I last week saw a patient with a very, very peculiar craniofacial pain syndrome, and it didn't even occur to me to check, and she's had multiple vaccines. It didn't occur to me to check anything. Would it be, what's the first step in evaluating that? Check the antibodies or check?
Yeah, I would check the antibodies, antibodies against the spike protein. If it's less than 1,000, it's probably not spike related. If it's up there, if she's up there at 5, 10, 15, 20,000, likely it is.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things you can do on these terrible craniofacial syndromes, believe it or not, is do a stellate ganglion block. So I refer to a doctor here in Dallas, and he has lots of case examples of this. And under ultrasound, they usually a pain doctor does this. They find the stellate ganglion, and they just inject some lidocaine around it. I think some longer-acting, a long-acting anesthetic. And it's very interesting. What it does is it blocks a feedback loop, because the stellate ganglia in the brain are constantly doing this. And once you block the loop, it's like you abolish the syndrome, not just for a few days, but essentially permanently. So consider
interestingly. Yeah, those stellate ganglion guys also claim they can interrupt PTSD and things with similar kinds of intervention, which is fascinating to me. Okay, so what I wanted to get at, though, was the spike detox. So it's 2 capsules twice a day, empty stomach, but you need a physician management for 4, and why is that?
Well, 4 is, we're getting to 16,000 fibrin-like units a day of nattokinase. So we're getting into almost anticoagulation range. Now, I talked to Jordan Vaughn, who testified in Congress. Jordan is an internist. He's running the largest vaccine blood clot center in the United States in conjunction with, gets a lot of referrals from William Redfield, former CDC director. And Jordan, out of the gate, is using 16,000 of natto a day.
So Redfield is now in the world of vaccineopathies.
No, that's
wow.
He's at least
that's crazy.
He's running a lot of patients. Well, because people call him, and there's so many blood clots out there. Anyhow, the safety limit on natto in our original paper we learned from the Japanese is probably 80,000 units a day. But now we're up to 16,000 units a day. I have, in my practice, I have thousands of patients on this direct observation. I've had one important bleeding event, and it happened in a patient with liver disease. Okay, significant liver disease. Was admitted to the hospital with a GI bleed. Did not require a transfusion. but it was close. Now, I've used 16,000 a day in addition to Eliquis and Xarelto and Pradaxa and even warfarin.
Other blood thinners.
We have to be cautious and, have an eye towards safety. I always tell people, listen, look for easy bruising, bleeding from the nose after brushing the teeth, and we can reduce the dose. People getting surgical procedures, make sure we stop these supplements a couple days ahead of time.
So the physician supervision is primarily just observational, just maintaining somebody eyes on, making sure there's no evidence of bleeding, anything that we would identify as concerning, subconjunctival hemorrhages or something like that. All right, interesting. Because I occasionally have patients that are taking 2 twice a day and are like, I want to do more. I'm like, I'm not sure exactly how to advise you. The other thing, back to Patterson and his group, they were using Miravirac and Pravachol at one point in their. Miravirac is an old antiviral, I think, and Pravachol, believe it or not, is a ACE inhibitor, statin. Yeah. Is there anything in your armamentarium that suggests that kind of thing would be helpful?
Well, in fact, he's proposed that for my patient I just presented. And the idea is the statin just blocks some of the metabolism of the Miravirac, which is an old HIV drug. I've tried it a few times. I haven't seen any benefit at all. I'm greatly concerned about toxicity.
Okay.
I told my patient, I said, much safer to go with the natural products here. We have seen spike antibodies markedly go down with the Ultimate Spike Detox from the Wellness Company or similar configurations. We have a peer-reviewed published paper demonstrating that in a myocarditis case that cleared up. So it can happen. It just takes a long time, typically a year. And I always tell people, listen, go a year on detox. And then if it's well tolerated, continue extending it until we can learn more. This guy who takes the vaccine and he still has spike in the blood 2.5 years later, we're going to publish that. That's greatly concerning.
My last thing is I want to get your opinion on something that the owner of the LA Times, he's also he was a cancer surgeon, he's a pharmaceutical researcher, Patrick Soon-Shiong. I can never always mess up his name, but he has become gravely concerned that our natural killer T cell population has been altered. He's worried about COVID. He admitted that that spike is probably the origin of the natural killer depletion. Therefore, the vaccine must also similarly be a concern. That the natural killer wipeout is sort of the last defense against cancer, and he believes that is why we are seeing an uptick in oncogenesis. I wonder if you have any opinion about that, and if so, is there anything we can do about it?
Probably the best paper to quote is by Anguis and Bustos, and it was published in the Springer Nature Journal. They're from Oregon. It was called the multi-hit hypothesis for cancer development after COVID-19 vaccination, and it does point out multiple mechanisms. Some of these this imbalance between T helpers, regulators, and killer cells. To me, the big ticket mechanisms are spike protein interfering with P53 and BRCA. These are tumor surveillance systems. There's a University of Pittsburgh paper demonstrating that stoichiometrically. And then, of course, messenger RNA impairing DNA repair. It's too much, going on in the nucleus of cells. The Chinese have shown that. And then this contamination, this SV40, these little fragments of a DNA found in Pfizer and Moderna, sometimes above the size or the quantity threshold. If you examine SV40 and its role in cancer, to me, it's not that clear. I'm interested in this, Drew. Maybe you were in the same age group. I was in the age group where I probably received some SV40 when the polio injectable vaccines were contaminated. So I think it's 1955 to 1964, when we were getting our polio shots, some of us got contaminated. And there was an Institute of Medicine report on this, and which said, we don't know how much cancer later on is going to be due to the SV40. So I've looked into it, and it's not entirely clear to me that SV40, the promoter, the enhancer, and the origin of replication are so directly oncogenic. But in the Bustos paper, the reason why it's important, it said, listen, it's never a single mechanism for cancer. It's multiple mechanisms that land in the same patient. And that's what did. Now, I wish the LA Times would have been a little bit more fair to me early on in the pandemic. You know, they were on my cease and desist list for writing me up and smearing me in the LA Times.
Well, listen, I would urge you, they now have a website, I guess, where you're allowed to interact with the writers. Please put something up there. He seems contrite and concerned, and he seemed like a reasonable person. He was not involved in the running of the paper and has since stepped back in. I was delighted to see that. So he's trying, I think. But yeah, I've had horrific, disgusting. I brought it up to him. I was like, these people, what is wrong? Oh yeah, what's wrong with your journalists not doing their job? So this is just disgusting. And he kind of laughed, haha. Well, it's not so funny when you're the object of their ridiculousness, but there you go. And then I got feed pushed back. Oh, she's scared. She's getting threats. Like, what do you think I got up until this day because of the garbage she wrote? Give me a break. How's it feel? You know, you reap what you sow, people. It's you're not the only ones with the access to the public now. When you were the ones that spilled the ink by the barrel, then who cares? Now other people can respond and other people hear it. Now you care? Oh, fantastic. Do your job. Just do your damn job. All right, enough, Peter. I've had enough today. We will see you. We will see you. Is it next week at the Wellness Wellness Company conference? Yeah, we'll all be together. I really appreciate you joining us here. I think this is an important update. I hope you'll come back every once in a while and re-clarify things, because there's a lot of really nuanced and important advances that move along here as we find out more and get more experience with this, reach a greater consensus about what's going on. More people willing to not attack doctors who are trying to struggle with this. I mean, think about how silly that is. Willingness to not attack doctors who are trying to help patients. Weird. Where are we? All right. Where do you want people to go to find you?
Well, go to Focal Point Substack. Go to www.thefocalpoints.com. We got, it's free. Get it every day. Get the updated abstracts, graphical information, key interviews. Make sure you check out America Out Loud Talk Radio McCullough Report. That's my podcast, as well as Pulse on Wednesdays. And follow me on social media. I'm out there. I'm chasing you, Dr. Drew. I can never catch you in followers since you've been at it so long. Such a master.
Been at it too long.
Great to join you.
You as well. We're delighted to have you. Do follow Dr. McCullough. People that you will benefit from following. So do so.
Hey, Peter, retweet us on Twitter when you get off the line.
I think I did, but I'll give it another blast. Okay.
Fabulous. See you soon. See you next week.
Ta-ta.
All right. Coming up, we have Stephanie Van Watson. She is a veterinarian. She was caring for Navy dolphins, and they developed illness, and she found a way to perhaps prevent those illnesses. And lo and behold, humans have a similar biology, and we should be taking advantage of her findings. She now has a new book. It's called The Longevity Nutrient. It is I urge you to read this book. This is we'll talk about when she gets in here. It's a really good book. And Caleb, maybe on the way back, we can, let's see, what do I want to choose here? Maybe we should have, there's the longevity nutrient. We should do RFK talking about the budget cuts, because that was what was in the news today. So he'll tell you. The pediatrics was really about the World Health Organization. We can play that in the other.
On my mind. But it's okay. You do you.
What would you like us to air? You're the producer. You can air what you wish.
I think we should talk a little bit on all, but go ahead. Let's take a break. And
if we can do both, then everybody will be happy, Caleb. I don't know if you want to do both or not.
I have all those clips, all 3 clips ready to go.
But I thought we might
all the way out here to do this. Let's.
I thought we might save the pediatric and the Caroline Signal Gate, but maybe the Signal Gate will have passed by then. So you can drop them in as you will. We'll try to get through all of them today. How about that? All right, be right
Sounds
back.
good. Yeah, let's do the RFK
Okay.
on the budget, and also we'll do, RFK on the pediatrics, and then also Caroline. We got to do a Caroline clip. That one was so good. We got to do it when the guy walks in front of the camera.
I love the woman walking across with the Treasury
did you get
Secretary.
the part where I'm like, dude. Like,
Oh yeah, Caroline. Her reaction. My wife and I would call her our millennial queen. She's our representative in the White House, representing our generation.
She is ridiculous.
I guess we didn't look professional.
I know we're not going to hear the whole interview, but I was mostly asking about her, right? I mean, like, what the hell? You know, how do you spill out of New Hampshire and Catholic girls, not girls school, but Catholic school? All of a sudden, you're in front of the press pool at the White House. It's crazy.
She like just had a baby or was like 8 months
baby.
pregnant or something. Oh yeah.
Oh my
it's
God.
like she had to jump right back into the campaign. But yeah, we'll run that clip. You got to see
We'll
like how
get
she
to all of
reacts.
it.
Someone walks
She's
in front of the
amazing.
camera and she's like a boss, just like you look and you're like, this guy's about to get fired. Whoever that was is in trouble.
He did crawl back and apologize,
Yeah.
but I didn't. What do I care?
You
All
guys
right,
didn't hear me yell at him.
here we go. Be right back.
Well, you've heard me praise Paleo Valley's grass-fed finished beef bone broth and the delicious meat sticks. I now want to turn it over to Paleo Valley founder and CEO, Autumn Smith, to tell you about her company's food philosophy.
I'm here to help create the products that make healthy food convenient in our modern world. The diet and the food you're consuming is absolutely related to your digestive health, to your mental health, to every aspect of your health. The devil's in the details here. And not only do we have to attend to every single ingredient, we have to support a system with whole foods. And so when we source a product, it's going to be organic, it's going to be tested for pesticides, and then it's going to be grass-fed and finished or pasture-raised. It's going to be raised on regenerative American farms.
The protein sticks that come in 8 varieties are likewise impeccably sourced and prepared.
And the fermentation process came about because there was an ingredient that I didn't like in meat sticks that's pretty widespread. It's called encapsulated citric acid, and it's derived from GMOs and then hydrogenated oil, and it just melts into the beef stick. And you don't have to label it. That's the thing. You can label it citric acid.
Make 2025 a year to cut out the chemicals and feed yourself correctly. Go to drdrew.com/paleovalley for 15% off your first order, 20% off when you subscribe. That is drdrew.com/paleovalley. The Wellness Company knows that taking charge of your family's healthcare is a top priority, and being rationally ready, and who knows what the future will hold for us. Now TWC has a service to cover your family's medical needs, including and especially prevention. For just $100 a month, the One Wellness Elite membership includes 2 free medical-grade nutraceuticals per month, free prescriptions for over 800 of the most common medications, access to concierge telemedicine, available at a moment's notice, and a 15% discount on all supplements and the emergency kits. 15% off the emergency kits. That's quite a saving. So if you're spending $100 or more on supplements and meds every month, this plan will already save you money. If you sign up for a year, you'll save $200. And when you use the link, drdrew.com/CWC, you'll get 10% off the first payment to the One Wellness Elite membership. Check out One Wellness at drdrew.com/TWC and get 10% off your first payment. drdrew.com/TWC. It's all there.
That's brilliant. And thank you, Drew. Where's Dr. Drew? Where is he? Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew.
All right, let's get to quickly look at a couple of these little cuts from today. We were at the White House doing interviews of cabinet level officials. Who you want to play first, Caleb?
Let's play Caroline, since I lined it up. This was about just almost under 3 minutes, and she's going to be talking about Signalgate and some of the other stuff that's going on at the
end. And then we'll bring Stephanie Van Watson situation. And to me, it feels like we need to move on.
Yes.
That something happened.
Yeah.
Yes, something happened.
Right.
Got it. Did it cause any consequence? Are we able to move on to more substantial policy conversations? Are you having any traction moving them off of this? Or is it just, we got to get a hoax out there?
If it were up to the legacy media, they would want to stay stuck on it forever.
But why? I don't understand. As an American, I don't want that. I want the news.
It's sensationalism. Well, thank you. They are realizing that sensationalism no longer sells papers or gets you ratings.
Okay.
If you look at the ratings, we were just talking about this, you look at channel networks like CNN, which used to be the number one in cable news, their ratings are in the gutter.
Yeah.
And it's because they focus on the sensationalism. Every hour of every day they are bashing Donald Trump. That's not what America wants to hear. They want to hear about the MS-13 ringleader who the president and his team arrested this morning and will be deported from our country. They want to hear about the president's tariffs yesterday and how those are going to impact them and their family.
What's happening?
He just completely walked. Who is that guy? Is he a staffer? Can you go tell him not to do that
It's
again?
an opportunity.
The American people want the media to focus on the issues that matter. The auto tariffs President Trump signed into law, how it will impact prices, jobs, wage growth. Well, it's a great question. Huge for the auto industry. In fact,
My car's worth a little more today. I like that.
well, Sean Fay, that's right.
I have a foreign vehicle. It's fine.
But this is going to do for our manufacturing industry, our
drive everybody
auto
back
industry,
here.
onshore jobs. That's what the president envisions. I've talked to him so much about his tariff policy and his vision for America, where the middle class in middle America, states like mine in northern New Hampshire.
Are you New Hampshire or Massachusetts
New Hampshire,
now? You're
yes.
New Hampshire.
But even Massachusetts, Lowell, Massachusetts, you went to college in Western Mass, used to be an industrial town, and now all those factories are hollowed out because those jobs have offshored to China. The president wants those jobs to come back where middle America is working, making goods here, and we're selling them to the rest of the world. We have the labor and the resources to do it, and that's what he envisions.
How long is that going to take, though? That feels like it's something that it's going to take a while.
Well, the president wants it to take as quickly as possible.
Of course.
And that's part of the reason he's implementing such strong tariff policies to incentivize these companies to come back as soon as they can. And we've already seen it. I mean, even before President Trump announced this policy yesterday, you've seen Hyundai, you've seen Mercedes, you've seen BMW, and many other car companies say that they are going to invest more in America. How great that we have a president who is really rallying the cause and is telling the rest of the world, you better do business here. And by the way, if you do business in America, you won't have any tariffs and you'll have the lowest taxes in the world.
There's the administration's greatest cheerleader right there. And she's a pleasure to talk to, a really interesting person with just so interesting somebody that age gets in front of the press pool. We also talked about the fact that that room we were in used to be the press room. It was in the executive building where Truman and Eisner used to have their press conferences. Now it's in the press pool, which was during the Kennedy era. Up until then was actually a pool, a swimming pool that's still essentially covered by plywood and upon which the press now sits. All right, shall we, before we bring in the RFK budget clip, let us go to my guest, Stephanie Van Watson. She is the brains behind Fatty. I'm recalled, well, I'll tell her this in a second, but the new book is called Longevity, The Longevity Nutrient. I suggest you get it. I suggest you read it. Welcome back, Stephanie Van Watson. There it is.
Dr. Drew, it's wonderful to be here.
You know, I was thinking when we were together the other day that I think where I found you was on your TED Talk. I think that is where I first saw you, and I was like, oh, that is something. That is real. That is this, and she understands this science. And then we got going from there. So the reason I bring this up is this one of the reasons I love the book, because you lay out the longevity science much the way you did on that TED Talk in ways that people can understand it from first principles. And we are really in a world now where people can, people like me aren't just trying to prevent things that shorten life. We can try to add things that lengthen life.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And, it's what's really exciting, Dr. Drew, is when we look at longevity and we cover in the book, like the 7 must-haves of a longevity nutrient or really any molecule that can effectively slow our aging rate, stem and slow the onset of chronic diseases that kill us. And that's how we can not only live longer, but we can live healthier. So we go through some of the top molecules on that longevity leaderboard, including things like rapamycin, metformin, and then how this new discovery of C15, right, this first essential fatty acid discovered in over 90 years that we've talked about, how it really has become not only the leading longevity nutrient, but the leading longevity molecule. It provides a lot of hope and a lot of excitement in the field of longevity that we really can reverse the aging process. Lots of really smart people working on it and lots of hope.
And it makes sense with how I understand the biology, which is that oxidation is one of the enemies, and these oxidized elements can get into the cell membranes and cause them to age. It's just the aging process, and they kind of fall apart, both at the mitochondrial level and at the cell membrane.
Yeah, a lot of, if you talk to us fellow longevity scientists, we all have our favorite doomsday reason for aging and what takes us out in the end. But and agree with you, Dr. Drew, that lipid peroxidation. It's ironic that oxygen, right, this molecule that we can't survive without for 3 to 7 minutes, is the same molecule that in the end attacks our molecules in our cell membranes, breaks them down, leads to the aging process, and in the end kills us. So it's this balance that we have with the Jekyll and Hyde of oxygen. And we now know that the more stable the fatty acids in the cell membrane, especially C15, one of its essential roles is that it keeps our cell membrane stronger, protects us against this lipid peroxidation, the attack of oxygen, and that prolongs life. There's actually a really cool theory that comes from A.J. Holbert, where he showed that the more stable and sturdy fatty acids in the cell membranes are, the longer a species lives. So it's already, nature has already figured this out, exactly what you said, of how a human and a dolphin can live 20 to 30 times longer than a mouse. So let's not start by trying to figure out how to help mice live longer. Let's start by understanding how us long-lived species live a long time, and then push and optimize that. And so that's what we've been able to do with the Navy and C15.
And it's interesting that I'm going to make you go back and tell me what you mean by that, the Navy and C15, because you can tell that story in a second. But I'm just sitting here thinking about how I'm realizing, as you described this, that for many years it was always oxygen becomes a free radical and destroys the genetic machinery, which of course it can do. But there wasn't a lot of evidence for that happening sort of over time. The way now you can say, oh, the oxygen gets slowly, it peroxidizes the membranes over time. And that's another, it doesn't have to rip the whole cell apart. It's just this slow destabilization process.
Yeah, that's right. And in fact, there was, this discovery of a whole new form of cell death called ferroptosis. And this was discovered by Columbia University researchers back in 2012. And that's where they found, that when we went to medical school or took our cell biology class, we learned there were 3 ways our cells die. This group discovered a 4th. And this form of ferroptosis is exactly what you said, where it's this attack of oxygen on fragile fatty acids in the cell membrane that leads to everything, Dr. Drew, you just described. It takes out our mitochondria, it leads to reactive oxygen species. While that used to be a slow process that happens over time, what we're now seeing is with this process and this new cell death of ferroptosis is accelerated. And so this accelerated aging process is happening. Nobody really understood why ferroptosis showed up until we'll talk about the dolphins. Revealed.
Go ahead. That's what I was going to say. Next, go to the dolphins. That's where they found out what was happening.
Yeah, this unexpected surprise, right? As a veterinary epidemiologist, I was working to continually help improve the health and welfare of the Navy's dolphins. That's when we discovered that about 1 in 3 of Navy dolphins, as they got older, developed things that are going to sound familiar, like high cholesterol, chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, and fatty liver disease, and even changes consistent with Alzheimer's in the brain. So because the dolphins are such a clean population, they don't smoke, they don't drink, they have a very clean diet and consistent health care.
I don't know what dolphins you hang around, but
I know, maybe the Navy dolphins, they might be getting some drinking in there. But we were able to use this advanced technology called metabolomics to study thousands of small molecules in their archived serum and in their all fish diet. And that's where we discovered it was C15 of 460 different molecules present in the dolphin's blood. This population of dolphins gave us the gift, the secret, showing that C15, this odd chain saturated fatty acid, helped explain why the healthy aging dolphins were aging healthier. Since then, over 100 peer-reviewed papers published by folks from around the world showing that C15 is not only essential, but is now a key to sustaining our long-term metabolic heart and liver health. and therefore our longevity.
And it is a fat that is sourced from foods and nutrients that we are generally discouraged from accessing, creams and things like that, that we have, we are sort of low fat oriented. So we're becoming deficient in this thing necessarily as a result of our dietary intake as well, correct?
That is correct. So we published last year what's called cellular fragility syndrome. So if something is essential, part of the definition of essentiality means that if you take it out of your diet, which is exactly like you said has happened as we've decreased our intake of dairy fat, that you would expect to see a deficiency, like vitamin C deficiency in scurvy and vitamin D deficiency in rickets. So what we found was C15 deficiency makes cells more fragile. They break down faster, cause this new form of cell death, fructosis, is present in as many as 1 in 3 of us, and in fact may be explaining this rise we're seeing in type 2 diabetes, coronary heart disease, and fatty liver disease, especially among younger people born since the 1990s.
Well, Dr. Van Watson, I take it. Susan takes it. Yep, she says she takes it. Kids take it. Everybody takes it.
We do.
And I get the science. I think you all, if you followed what Dr. Van Watson is saying here, and you want to hear it again, or want to see more, it's all laid out in the Longevity Nutrient. If you want to convince a family member, the opening chapters of that book, I just thought, oh, everybody can understand this. And so, and that's unusual for a longevity cellular biology conversation. And you have a way of presenting it that's actually interesting too. Usually, people's eyes glaze over when you talk about these things. But we appreciate you. We appreciate the book. It's Serafina Therapeutics. You can get it at doctor.com/fatty15. And am I right? Did your husband say that Fatty's going to have a new landing page, or is there a new website for people to go to yet?
There is. So there's for the book, there's the longevitynutrient.com, and then we have fatty15. And Eric's right here to tell me the answer. Dr. Drew. Fatty15.com/Dr. Drew.
All right, perfect.
Or vice
Beautiful.
versa.
All right, we will see you again very soon. Thank you for joining us.
Great, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, we're going to watch a couple more videos of what happened to us today at the White House. Again, we are here in Washington, D.C. If you're just joining us, that's why the unusual environment. We're at the Rumble Studios. We are so grateful to our Rumble friends. Rumble. Wait a minute. There it is. Rumble. And we were, with several of the cabinet level officials, and the two remaining clips we have here are of RFK Jr. talking both about the budget cuts this morning that have been in the news, and also I was asking him about some of the World Health Organization mandates or things that are being experienced as mandates that have been uptaken by the pediatric community that don't make sense to me. So let's look at the budget cuts first.
I've been battling the public health agencies for many years, and what I found is that most of the people who work for the agency are extraordinary public servants, really devoted to the mission. But there's an upper echelon of people who've been entrenched there for many years.
Yeah.
And
that's true throughout Washington, right?
Yeah,
it's not just this.
And the agency is simply dysfunctional.
Yeah.
During the Biden administration, they increased the budget by 38%.
I know.
And
We're so much healthier now.
Yeah.
With work.
Exactly.
It's like, poof.
We had a 17% increase in employees, and our health continued to decline. So what's happening?
Yeah.
What we're really trying to do there now is to imbue people with a sense of mission, give them very, very clear objectives. So everybody wakes up in the morning and says,
it's all rowing in the same direction. I mean, it could not be more vivid and more clear.
Yeah, it seemed pretty vivid, clear, simple to me. I don't understand the mishigas around it, or as Susan says, mishmagosh. And I just that's fine. He has to manage his organization, and that's how he's going to manage it. And he's trying to get everybody in this philosophically and procedurally and policy in the same boat, and do it as efficiently, as cost effectively as possible. I don't understand why that is controversial, but that's just me. And then I asked a question about the pediatric World Health Organization. There are certain things that the World Health Organization has gotten into the pediatric world that I don't understand, and they just don't make sense. And so I raised this. I'm not a pediatrician, so maybe there are reasons that I don't understand, but I raised this concern with RFK Jr. and this was his response.
I was looking at some of the things that are recommended. I've got a granddaughter now, and the World Health Organization has got its hand in a lot of the things that pediatrics do these days. Can we disentangle that? I immediately don't trust that.
Yeah. It's critical. And I think, some people are upset because we withdrew from the WHO. The WHO has become a very nefarious organization.
I look at the things they're recommending. I'm going, I don't know where this came from. Oh, it came from them? Oh, my God.
It's all driven by Big Pharma. It's driven by China. It's been driven by all these other
and this weird sense that if one person gets it, everybody's got to get it. That's not medicine. That's not medicine.
That is not medicine. Medicine is one patient, one doctor, one family, one doctor with that patient if necessary. If it's a pediatric case, they make the decision. Not anybody else, not some centralized, not some handed on down from on high. That is, I don't know what that is, but it's certainly not the practice of medicine. And again, he's very satisfying to me to talk to him. His head is in the right place. I would urge patience. I came away this morning thinking, wow, the jobs that these people have to do are enormous. And we actually walked out of that whole session and walked right into Tulsi Gabbard, who was dealing with all the Signal Gate stuff, and she could not have been more gracious, graceful. He hugged both of us, right? Did you notice any stress, Susan?
Yeah, I wish she had gotten there sooner because we could have interviewed her.
I mean, I don't want to bother her.
I don't know if she was just passing by or she was just...
She was in a meeting at the other end of the hall. I saw her come out of the meeting.
Okay.
And I sort of tracked her down, and she had that big Secret Service guy there with the nuclear code or something in the bag. I don't know what that was.
She looked...
Can we get Susan on the camera here too, Dylan? Thanks. The way she what?
The way she was dressed, she looked like she was in military girl. She had a white jacket, like a long jacket and skirt, like totally covered.
She wasn't in the hang loose Hawaii gear.
She looked like, I mean, it was a little Hillary Clinton-esque, very, very professional, but
smiling, hugged you.
Yeah, but
gracious.
Like you can just see that she's taken on such a huge endeavor. And I said, congratulations. Oh my God, we're so happy for you. And she goes, oh, I've seen you a lot in the news. And Drew said, we've seen you a lot in the news too. And she kind of went, like, okay, yes.
Yeah, I just said, thank you. I'm just so grateful. Every time I go through TSA, I'm grateful for Tulsi Gabbard.
Anybody who takes on these jobs is a saint. I don't know why anybody wants to be the president of the United States. It's still like...
Well, it's now that I'm talking to people that are wanting to change the operations, not just sort of be a figurehead over them or to make them just be a ceremonial figure, but actually run them, change them. It's a huge job they're taking on, and
then
it's sort of overwhelming to be around it.
It's not that easy to just fix things. There's politics behind it. There are people behind it. There's lobbies behind it. There's corruption behind it. There's all these things that we're finding out that's behind it. But now in these times, especially when you're under Trump's reign, it's like, okay, a little bit more dangerous. It just feels a little bit harder. I don't know. It
just feels overwhelming to me. But Caleb, did you learn anything from our experience today? Did you're watching all those tapes and cutting them up, doing a great job? By the way, thank you to Emily Barsh for helping us set this up. Thank you to Susan for executing it. Put her
and Rumble
action
Studios
shot,
for having us.
Put her action shot up, Caleb, if you
short
can.
Notice.
Thank you to Caleb for dealing with all this incredible tech problems. Thank you to the viewers and listeners. There's Susan in action. That's in the Indian treaty room.
Drew.
Yeah, there's everybody. All the different podcast sort of setups.
I know, but we were all like that on our phones. It was really.
But anyway, the Indian treaty room. That is that, and we, the viewers and listeners, thank you. The Jack Prasabic interview. We apologize that the sound was so bad. We didn't know.
I wish that came out better.
It sounded good, so we went up with it, and then all of a sudden it was bad. So what can we do?
It was very last minute. We didn't do a sound check well enough.
The ability to go out and bring you real-time interviews, long-form interviews out in the natural habitat is an evolving technology.
And we can probably do it better if we ever have another invitation. But what we do with it now is the question. Like, we're trying to help the White House get messages out that they are trying hard, to to help America. So,
and Caleb, thank you so much for putting up with the technical stuff all day and then for cutting it all. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you to Rumble Studios. We're very, very grateful for everyone's participation in what has been, I think, a worthwhile day. Did you learn anything, Caleb, listening to all those interviews?
I didn't learn a huge amount, but I just left it with a lot of relief. I was just so relieved. I felt just especially watching Caroline, like I feel represented. I feel like there's a voice there of someone who is a young parent, who's hardworking and who's close to our age. And
interesting.
I feel represented by someone being there just that's in my same age group. Yeah, I haven't felt like that in a long time before.
But she is a, I don't have a quite way of describing it yet, but she is a Trump acolyte. She is very much a fan of the administration and the policies and the leadership. And she's all about it. I mean, she told me, I don't know if it came through in the interview. I think it was on the interview. She reads multiple papers every morning. She watches all the news outlets every morning. She studies up. They have a sort of a conference of what exactly policy issues are an issue and being discussed. Mm-hmm. And then she goes out and faces the firing squad.
And there was one more person that we didn't show the video of, is the Secretary of Education. So Drew said that she was very intelligent and interesting. So we'll save that for the next show.
Secretary McMahon. She opened with, "I've been tasked with doing away with my job." So, but the thing that I took away from her, aside from the fact she's an incredibly effective executive, which is clear from talking to her, but that she is willing to do the hard work with the Congress to get them to close the Department of Education and to take the essential services for the students that are in need of what they provide over to HHS, because they're health issues primarily anyway. So that's where it should be. Okay, well,
next show, we'll show that.
Very interesting day, very long day. We are exhausted. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Caleb. We appreciate you all being here. And
Emily Barsh.
And Emily Barsh
Crack
for
producer.
Setting this all up and also booking the show today at the last minute.
I know. I didn't know we were going to do this. Like, it just happened.
And there's the Rumble banner up there. Don't forget to go to rumble.com/Dr. Drew. Subscribe there on our Rumble channel. And we will see you on Tuesday. Who is the guest, Caleb? Do we have that to throw up there somewhere?
We're not sure. Everything's up in the air now. So, but we'll get all that stuff posted up. I'll post it.
The next show is going to be Calling Out with Susan Pinsky on Wednesday. So tune in if you want to hear more about.
Because as Dr. McCullough and I were saying, we have a meeting with the wellness company next week. And we're going to be at that pretty much all week. So it's a very, very, very busy time. And we apologize for the choppiness, but it's been kind of interesting. I'm glad we made the effort to do this. I think it was worth it. Do you have anything on the rants there or on the restream that we should be addressing or talking to?
Nobody's chilling.
Wasn't there somebody that put up a chat, a super chat or whatever they call it?
Yeah, we got a big one.
And what did he want?
It was hard for me to understand. It says,
go ahead, let's read it.
Dr. D, hope you deep dive into life events experienced in a stream focused on those events, e.g., how widespread did educated elites inciting young uni students, how you saw AIDS, etc., gold to younger people. See, I couldn't understand it, but thank you, Fleet Lord Avatar. Do you understand that?
Let's try. So he sort of wanted me to talk about my experience across time on
AIDS. and how elites incite young university students and how you saw AIDS and it's at a gold
I'll tell you what I will do.
Younger people.
Let me really quickly, I will give him this answer. I did this on Viva's show too.
I'm glad you understand that.
Which is, I was in part of the ecology movement back in the 70s. And that ecology movement, we were scientists and we were absolutely convinced. We had done the math and anyone that disagreed with us was a science denier. We didn't have that word, but that's what we were suggesting. We were going to run out of oil in 20 years. So what petroleum products did to the environment didn't matter because we were out in 20 years. We needed to prepare for that. 2, acid rain was going to destroy agriculture, choke our rivers. Algae blooms were going to end life in the non-salty waters, period, end for sure. Number 3, famine, for sure famine. FYI, the reason that turned out to be an incorrect calculation was adaptation and technological advances. You can argue with whether they were good or bad, but GMOs were what allowed us to prevent the famine. And then Ice Age. Guaranteed ice age. Absolutely. Anyone that disagreed with us was out of their mind and a denier, and we needed to be marginalized because we had done the math. We had decided what was going to happen, and that was that. It begged no conversation. It was a massive movement. You can look at the front page of Newsweek or Time magazine. Coming ice age is on the front page of national magazines. All the scientists agree. So now you'll excuse me if I'm skeptical when all the science agree is on anything, particularly around something as complicated as climate, and particularly something like energy, when there's all kinds of technological adaptations and advances that humans get into. So look, yes, there might be a problem, there might not be, but we should be able to discuss it and to disagree with it and to kick the tires, because when we were sure of it 50 years ago, and the science was good, I assure you, I was deep in it. We knew we were talking. We were convinced we were wrong, and we could be wrong again. And we being convinced and being convinced that everyone else is a science denier that doesn't agree with us does not mean that we were right or correct or could predict the future. Be skeptical of everything, and certainly if COVID taught us nothing else, and Hunter Biden's laptop and Russia Gate hoax and all these things. Don't believe anything in the news. Don't believe me. Check everything out for yourself. Be skeptical. Think about things for long periods of time before you decide what is or is not true. Don't jump to any conclusions, and don't be certain about anything. We'll leave it at that. Thank you all for joining us today. That's very funny.
Drew strikes back.
Yeah, it's been a long day. I'm tired. I've been up since really 4:30 Pacific time. We will see you, Susan's show, next Sunday.
Yes. And Caleb, somebody asked if I have a Twitch channel for Calling Out. I used to, but I don't know if we go live on that anymore.
You might. I'll check on it.
All right, we'll try next week on Wednesday. I think it's called Calling Out Show, right?
And did I get that guy? Was there anything else?
Or we'll put it on Dr. Drew channel or something.
My X channel or something? Or the Twitch?
For Twitch, okay. Yeah.
Was there anything else that guy asked? I think he had a follow-on.
I'm sorry, did he ask another question?
He had a super chat follow-on or
something? No, but I'm very grateful. Thanks for the super chat.
Okay, we appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. I'm glad you answered it. And I
hope that's the kind of thing he was talking about. I think that's what he's talking about. Is that there's a lot of things going on, and just be circumspect, listen to things, collect your information from multiple sources, listen to the long-form interviews, read a lot, look at history, read science if you can, and pay attention. And we'll see you next week. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.